cost you a single penny. Before I get on to that, I've been investing money for 50 odd years. I've made a lot of mistakes. I don't make so many mistakes these days. And my mission is to help you manage your finances better, to learn how to invest in the stock markets, how to invest in gold or gold miners or Bitcoin or equities or property or any other type of investment. I'm here to teach you about investing your money so that you can prepare your own financial future and your retirement. And one of the things you may have noticed from some of my recent videos is I sometimes tell a little story. In the middle of the video, it's a story which is quite often unrelated to the video in question, but it's an anecdote from my career of being an investment manager and a wealth manager over the last 50 years. For example, if you watch some recent videos, you might have heard the story about the Black Widow. That's the lady, very sexy and beautiful lady, who perhaps was a husband killer and managed to entice me into her apartment when she was dressed like a prostitute. And then there was that story of this it's about 261.5 million ounces to be exact. But here's the crazy part. On the official books of the government, this gold is valued at just $42.22 an ounce. That's the statutory price of gold set in 1972. The gold thus has a book value of only 11 billion US dollars. But at today's market price of about $3,300, that same gold is actually worth over $862 billion. And if gold were to be revalued to $15,000 an ounce, that gold would be worth over nearly $4 trillion. But let's go back in history a little bit. Where did this gold come from in the first place? Not at the holder's behest. So we go back to 1934. All that gold was transferred from the Federal Reserve to the Treasury as a result of the Gold Reserve Act. But Roosevelt wasn't done on that day. The next day, he devalued the US dollar by over 40%. He did this by changing the official price of gold from $20.67 an ounce to $35 an ounce. Or more precisely, as it was worded in his proclamation, he reduced the gold weight of the dollar from 25.8 grains of gold, 9/10 fine, to 15.715 grains of gold, 9/10 fine. Unfair trade tactic. It was a clear signal that the old rules of money no longer applied. So why am I talking about something which happened 90 years ago? Because today, the USA is facing a similar crisis. The national debt is spiraling out of control. The interest payments alone are becoming one of the biggest expenses of the entire federal budget. And worse is to come. The government has to refinance about $9 trillion of its debt over the next 4 years. That's roughly 1/3 of its debt. This debt was issued when interest rates were low, about 1.5% to 2%. Today, interest rates or yields on bonds are closer to 5%. The value, $11 billion. Secondly, the president would issue an order raising the official statutory price of gold to $15,000 an ounce. Thirdly, the Treasury now sell all of its gold to the Federal Reserve at the new price, the new statutory price, receiving in exchange $3.9 trillion of newly created digital cash. And finally, the government would repeat the 1934 trick, which is to pass a new law forcing the Federal Reserve to hand over that gold back to the Treasury in exchange for, you've guessed it, another gold certificate. The end result. The Treasury's got its gold back, plus it's got Threep's team, the man who broke the Bank of England by betting against the pound. So taking big bets is something that he will know all about. Now, whilst he's probably divested himself of these private interests, probably as a requirement of becoming, taking office of as Secretary of the Treasury, his public statements are what are most interesting. And this is where I get the information to say that remonetization of gold, probably at $15,000, is under consideration as I speak. So what Scott Bessent has said, he has talked about the need to monetize, and I'm using words he used, monetize the asset side of the US balance sheet. Now, if you see it announced in the news beforehand, but there will be signs. The only advance warning you might get is a rapidly rising gold price and a falling dollar, without any obvious explanation. That could be a signal that insiders who knows what's coming are making their moves. Immoral, illegal, unjust, unfair, whatever. Prices often move before a major announcement, and there's very rarely any prosecution. But here's my little story that I promised you, currencies or anything like that. If I wanted to know the price or the exchange rate, I had to call a broker in the USA. Or, in my case, I could often call my friend across the street. He had something called a quotron machine. And with a quotron machine, you could get delayed data on stocks, on stock prices or currencies. And often, when we'd meet up after work for our drinks in the Sunset Bar, he would bring a printout from his quotron machine, which would list the midday prices for US stocks and give some news and currencies. As a result, I was often more up to date than anyone else in my office. I knew what prices were moving or what the major stories were. We had no international newspapers in the case. He had an amazing track record, and his portfolio of currencies was growing in value far faster than if he'd simply placed dollars on deposit. So I would often ask my friend about how he did it. Apparently, the man was a university lecturer, and he was some sort of genius in mathematics. And somehow he could use the university's computer to figure out what currencies were going to do next. Of course, I was fascinated. At the time, I wanted to know more. I was convinced that somehow the past prices could predict the future. And it seemed, based on this man's story, that computers might be the way to predict stock prices. Certainly, he seemed to be predicting currencies correctly with his university computer. And I'd often press my friend for more information about that, at least not yet. It could be more, it could be less. I think that would be a sensible price to move it to. All we know is that Scott Bessent has advocated monetizing the Treasury's balance sheet. And as far as I can see, the only asset, and the obvious asset, which could be monetized, is the gold. So the only questions I've got are when and at what price. I think $15,000 makes sense, but maybe he'll pick another one. We'll see. If we have such a revaluation, it will send shockwaves through the global economy. it could trigger a massive surge in the prices of other assets like stocks or Bitcoin. Alternatively, if you have questions, you can write to me on LinkedIn and I'll do my best to answer them there. Until the next video, keep watching the markets.
Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Support the channel by liking this video, subscribing, and enabling post notifications for more content on crypto and digital assets. Check out our other videos and share your thoughts in the comments below. Your engagement helps with the YouTube algorithm and keeps the content coming. Thanks for your support. Enjoy the video.